All right, I'm pretty nervous about this. I got to be honest, and I felt like I wasn't ready, and like I wouldn't be ready for a long time. But the Holy Spirit told me, "No, you're ready. It's time. It's time to share your story." So this is mostly from the heart. I have a few things written down, but mostly it's just going to be from the heart. I've been, the enemy's been attacking me with fear, with shame, with doubt for the last little while now. And, today I was told in the spirit that it's because he doesn't want you to tell your story. And that once you tell your story, my story is going to be his glory. So, is going to be God's glory. So, basically, I was raised in a Christian household, but I had a bad relationship with my stepdad. He didn't treat me all that well. I know he meant well, and I know he cared about me, but he was a little bit abusive, and I know he thought he was doing the right thing, but he had a lot of mental health problems, and I became rebellious at a very early age. I rejected all authority. I felt like if anybody taught me anything, it would be a sign of weakness in me. Nobody ever gave me this idea. This idea just came to me fully formed. I was proud, I was stubborn, and I didn't want to be told what to do. And then when I was 12 years old, I started smoking pot. And one day I actually invited evil spirits into my life because I was so angry at my stepdad. And it was, I mean, I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But evil came into my life quickly. And pot turned into ecstasy, turned into alcohol and crack and meth and all the hardcore drugs you can get. It turned into that, and by the time I was 18, I was a full-blown drug addict, sticking needles in my arm. And I ended up going to jail when I was 19. And in jail, I did end up having one of my first spiritual experiences, um, where I truly came to know God not just as a belief, not just as something I believed in, but as a living, breathing presence. But I still thought that when I got out of jail, I could still have a few beers or whatever. And I was wrong. And when I got out of jail, I was homeless that week. That week I was out on the streets again. And that week I was using meth again. And that turned into years and years of being in and out of detox centers, in and out of recovery houses, in and out of treatment centers. And by this point, I had completely turned my back on Christianity. Um, I didn't think ill of Jesus. I kind of just thought of him as somebody who had enlightenment and understanding, something along the lines of Buddha. But I didn't think of him as my master, as the right hand of God, as it were. And but the whole time that I was gone, he sent people to me. Random strangers would come up to me and say, "Brother, why you shouldn't be out here? You got to come home." They would say stuff like that. And one day, I get shakes just thinking about this, but two men came up to me, two men I had never met in my life. And one of them said to me, "Jesus knows how much you're struggling with Christianity, but he wants you to know that he loves you." Now, these men had no way of knowing that I struggled with Christianity. Um, But I justified it in my mind. I said, it's just a coincidence. It's just a lucky guess. They're just trying tricks, tactics to try to convert me. But there was no ulterior. Now that I look back on it, it was pure love. There was no judgment. There was no condemnation in his voice. And one day I was in a recovery house, and the man who facilitated the recovery house, he knew that I considered myself not to be Christian. So he was doing a group, because he thought I wasn't going to be there. He was going to do a group about the Bible, about the book of Job, to be specific. And he thought, well, Jake, my name's Jake, isn't Christian, so I can do this group. But then he found out I was going to be there, so then he thought, well, since Jake's not Christian, I got to find a different topic. And God spoke to him, and God said, Jake is no less Christian than you or anyone else in the house. And as per usual, I ended up relapsing again. And this one was particularly devastating and heartbreaking. I cried and cried and cried when I came to myself. And I felt hopeless. I felt so much shame and guilt. I couldn't stand it. And I think probably based on what that man had said, I decided to give the Bible another shot. And I started reading the Gospels. And by the time I got near the end of Mark, well, I don't know how I'm going to go about explaining this, but all of a sudden, all of the thoughts in my mind were cast to one side. And one thought replaced it all. And the thought was, if I prove to you that I am who I say I am, will you accept me? And I believe that was the voice of Jesus Christ. And I said, of course. Now, it's going to be tricky to explain what happened. I felt a presence in that room, and it was an overwhelming presence. It was undeniable. It made me shake. It took my breath away for a moment, and I'm not going to lie, I was scared. And the presence told me, do not be afraid, just let me in. And I think I was folding my arms like that. I was in a resistant pose, and I just opened myself and I just let go. And the presence filled me from head to toe. And I made a sound like that. I felt pressure on the top of my head as if the presence was like coming into me. And I said out loud, what the F is happening to me? I said the real F word, what the F is happening to me? And again, it said, do not be afraid. And all of a sudden, I felt overwhelmed with love and joy and peace like I had never known before in my life. And it was intense. It was more joy and love than I had ever experienced, than I knew a human being could experience. And I knew in that moment that, that he was real. And in Luke 15, he says, what man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. And that's what he did. The whole time I had walked away, he kept on sending people out to try to bring me back into the fold. And, I wish I could tell you that after that, I, never did drugs again and lived happily ever after, but that's not what happened. I wasn't ready to fully accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior. I wasn't. I still had a lot of grievances with Christianity. I still had a lot of, problems with things I didn't understand, and which a lot of them to this day I still don't understand. But so I kept on, trying it my own way, and of course it kept not working. And eventually that led back to full-blown addiction, and it went on for 5 more years. And God kept telling me I needed to leave the situation I was in, but I kept disobeying. And then I faced a heartbreaking betrayal, and and I forgive the person, but um, I left and I went to stay with my family. And now, one thing you have to understand is I could not stop doing drugs for 16 years. I tried everything. A lot of times I would have short-term success, but it would always be followed by a worse relapse than ever before. And, you know, for a month, for the first month that I was staying with my family, I used a couple more times, and then the addiction was just taken away, just like that. Gone. Every now and then the thought still comes, but it doesn't overwhelm me, because when the thought came, it used to turn into I couldn't control my body. It would take over me like I was possessed, and I would go get the drugs even if everything in me was screaming, don't do it, don't do it, come on, don't do it, anything but this. But I would go into it kicking and screaming, but I would still go back to it time and time again. But for months now, it's been gone. And I came to understand that it was Jesus. It was Jesus who took my addiction away from me. And, now, in spite of me, I'm living for him now. I've accepted him as my master. And, I feel really bad because, when I had a lot of grievances with Christianity, I was rude to people that talked about the gospel. I was disrespectful to them about it. And, I've agreed that every single one of those people that I was rude to about it, when I see them, I'm going to apologize to them, and I'm going to admit that I was wrong. And I still don't have it all figured out today. And there's, still some parts of the Christian faith that I don't understand, and that kind of, but I do know that there's an answer now. That's the difference. I know that if I misunderstand something, it's just because I don't see the full picture yet. But I know I will see the full picture. Now, one thing that Yeshua, Jesus, said to his disciples, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should remain, that whatever you ask in the Father in my name, he may give you." And that's been my experience. Even though I didn't choose him, he still chose me. And he came out to find me while I was lost. And then he also said to his disciples, "Therefore my Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it again." He said, "No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself." And that's, I lay my life down for him, of myself. I choose him willingly. I don't feel forced to choose him. I don't feel forced to follow him. I choose to follow him willingly. And that's where I'm at with it. And yeah, I mean, I'm still, I don't know why I feel so nervous to tell the world about this, to talk about this. My ego doesn't like the fact that I'm going to have to kind of eat crow on this issue, but I got to take this act of faith because God's telling me it's time. So, I mean, here it is. I don't know what else to say. I guess that's it.